filed suit against that in Massachusetts. We also have a case that's really moving very quickly in California known as Pena, which deals with the California state handgun roster, and now their so-called micro-stamping requirement has been added to it. In the court, we filed this 5 years ago against the handgun roster, and been getting bounced around in court without anything coming out of it, which I'll give you another story about in a second about how the courts mess over us sometimes. Then micro-stamping kicked in, and we asked the court to amend it to add micro-stamping to it. The state of California opposed us doing that. The judge said yes, it's perfectly valid to add that to it, and did add it to it. And that case right now is moving in California, and in fact we argued to the judge that basically in some ways a ban on firearms, because you can't get new guns added to the list anymore in California, and a lot of the manufacturers aren't making their older models anymore, and so they don't exist, and they're being pulled off the roster because if a company doesn't pay a fee to the state of California every year to keep the gun on the roster, it goes bye-bye and it can't be sold in the state of California anymore. And this year alone, since the first of the year, I think it's over 120 models of firearms are no longer on the handgun roster list in California that can't be sold. Glock gave us an amicus brief on behalf of our suit, and Smith & Wesson and Ruger gave us affidavits to follow up the suit. And the judge in that case took those affidavits and amicus so seriously that she wants more information on that and asked the state of California to try and defend those, oppose those affidavits with more data to build her court record, because she sympathizes with us that there really is a gun ban on future sales in California. And now I'm told that this past week that HK and FN are both doing affidavits on our behalf for the judge's request for additional information before she rules, and that the National Shooting Sports Foundation is also going to put in an affidavit on our behalf as well, which means the judge in this case is taken very seriously, and we may be able to knock out that handgun roster in California. Now, another thing that could affect New Jersey, well, before I come to that, we've had a case that was filed over 5 years ago, known as Palmer versus DC. DC does not allow any form of carry of firearms. And in DC, that particular case is still pending. Now, it's not a may issue situation, it's a no issue situation. But that case, we had a judge assigned to the case who would do nothing with the case. And the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, monitoring court traffic and what's happening in the courts, removed the judge from the case and had a judge at random pick a new judge to hear the case. Doesn't happen every day that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court takes a federal judge off a case because he refuses to deal with it. And then we got another judge, and this judge also, neither but the judges are friends, by the way, of Second Amendment rights. The second judge in that case is sort of sitting on the case as well, to the point where he won't do much with it. And so we filed a writ of mandamus with the appeals court, arguing that that the case should be ripped out of his court, or he should be forced to act by the appeals court. And they said, well, he's only had it a couple of years. He's getting close to the point where it is bad. So what we say is we'll deny your motion now, but without prejudice, so you can bring it back again. Well, we've now had to bring it back again 6 months later because he's done absolutely nothing still, and we have that writ of mandamus sitting with the court as well. Now, it's a carry case that quote-unquote means guns outside the home. And it's a case, while it may not be may issue, it shall issue, but the court could always rule in a carry case of that nature. And maybe the court's waiting for this case. The Supreme Court could be waiting for this one because it's a knockdown, drag-out, easier one to rule that it's an outright ban, but in their language, they put language in their ruling that takes care of New Jersey at the same time. So that's a possibility that could help New Jersey. And then another case we've got, and I'm forgetting the name of it, I apologize, it starts with a D, against D versus Eric Holder. We're challenging the law that basically says that you can't buy, actually it's an expatriate case, a person that lives in Canada, that when he comes home to Texas, can't buy a gun in Texas because he's not a resident of the state for purposes of the 68 Gun Control Act. Can't buy a handgun for self-defense in the state. And the judge, we're at the appeals court level on that one. The lower court judge ruled against us. The appeals court has now asked the government to respond to a question that justices have. And this is after all arguments have already been made. And they want the Justice Department to, quote unquote, address what is your home and what's not your home. Is your home limited to your front door of your house? Is your home limited to your state? Is your home limited to America, since this person is an American citizen? That's a really good sign that the judges in the appeals court are trying to pin the government down on what's your home. Now, if this case is not a carry case, it's a purchase case. But if you're, quote unquote, for purposes, if your home is America, or your home is your state, you now will have a federal appeals court ruling defining that your home is not stopping at your front door, which aids and abets our carry cases as well. Okay, so that's a hidden gem that's sitting out there that nobody's paid any attention to. We've got about 30 cases going on, and that's why I couldn't remember the name of this particular case, in federal court alone right now, and it's really hard to monitor this, and our general counsel in the office could probably do it in a heartbeat, because he's dealing with the court calendars on this every day. But when you have to follow 30 federal court trials that you're doing, if you're an attorney in private practice, and there's a couple of attorneys in the room, and you have 30 cases at the trial court levels or appeal court levels, and you're dealing with all these timelines, deadlines, arguments, and everything, you know that's more than you can probably deal with at any one given time. So we have different attorneys doing these cases, but we as the Second Amendment Foundation have to monitor to make sure that all the time, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, because if you don't, you screw up, and it's not fair for any of your clients or our constituents, you guys. And so this is sort of what's on our plate right now on the legal side. And so we're moving it still going that way, and we're coming back to New Jersey again. Thank you, Albert. When I got that email, it was like, wow, there's hope for New Jersey here, but how stopped are we based on the past court cases and what's going on? And I immediately, sent this email out to Alan Gura, who argued the Heller McDonald cases, and all our key victories that we basically had in North Carolina, knocking out their emergency powers law, infringing on Second Amendment rights, and Chicago's, got ban on gun ranges, and Illinois' ban on carry. And Alan's feeling was that, well, we have a problem taking this right now straight to federal court, because the Supreme Court, if they didn't hear Drake out of New Jersey and a federal court case comes out of New Jersey right now, then probably the interest level isn't going to be that high, probably. We don't know why, but probably not going to be there. But this one, if it came back to the state courts, you can still appeal it from the state Supreme Court right to the U.S. Supreme Court. And so let's start the process and keep this alive, because this may be the important link for New Jersey. So that's sort of where we sit legally. I hope it's a little bit entertaining for you a little bit. I enjoy being with all of you. But I'd like to really open up to questions and answers, because I learned as much from you as you learned from me, and we can really get into it. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to know how easy is it going to be for Obama to create an executive order to ban gun rights?
You asked a very broad, the question was, in case it wasn't picked up on the camera, how easy will it be for Obama to pass an executive order or sign an executive order that would basically eradicate or infringe on gun rights? Gun rights is an amorphous term. And the thing is that he can do it in some areas and can't do it in other areas. When it comes to import-export, he can do a lot. If he wanted to sign an order, he has somebody to go further. What he hasn't done so far, which I'm amazed, which I expected to happen already, was a ban on import of ammunition. We all know how tight the ammunition markets have been. You can really hurt gun owners real heavily by doing that. A lot of American companies would be happy with it, because they still sell their product and have less supply for bigger demand. And so you wouldn't get any heat from the firearms industry as a whole, only from the importers and exporters, and burn all of us as consumers real heavily. He hasn't done it yet, and quite frankly, I'm surprised, and I still expect it to happen. There are some other areas he can do things in. He's already signed a whole bunch of executive orders dealing with firearms, in response to Congress not passing his legislation, but most of that is honestly it's meaningless and hasn't done a whole lot to us. He will do anything he can do, but he is limited in what his authority is. Now, will that totally stop him in other areas? No, we've already seen him exceed his authority by executive order already in other areas. We've already seen courts strike down some of his executive orders in other areas, and there are current cases still pending. So obviously, I expect more out of him to be attacking us, but he can only go so far. He can't take away your right to keep and bear arms. He can infringe upon it, and do some damage to us, but he can't get rid of gun rights in total. Yes, sir.
You
spoke and wrote an article earlier this year on how we as gun owners and gun right activists should take the moral high ground on background checks and look to write the laws before the antis write stuff that we don't like. I know it didn't receive a well reception from the NRA and some other groups, but how do you think we should proceed on that issue? With all that's going on with Bloomberg and all the millions of dollars, background checks is still something that I think we'll lose the moral high ground on if we don't act upon it. The man you told me may not have been the perfect bill, but what do you think we can do to make it better for us?
Well, let me start by talking a little history in that, because not everybody may know all the history behind where I came with on that. But I've for years been looking at the opinion polls on background checks. We don't win it. And while we can hold some politicians' feet to the fire and make sure that certain things don't get passed and win a battle, winning the war on this, in my opinion, is not good. Chances are slim to nil over time. Now, I'm the first one to admit background checks aren't going to stop any problems. Any criminal who wants to get a gun is going to get his hands on it anyway. I know that. You know that.
Yes.
Truth is, people who support background checks in America also know that. That's why you can't change their opinion on it, because they know it, they don't care. The other thing is the majority of gun owners, by the polling data, which is accurate, also support background checks. Why? Well, maybe because they already have their guns, so they don't really care. Or B, what the polling data shows to me is they don't view background checks as gun control. Now, the background check as written, or as manipulated, may in fact be gun control. And that's why I think it's important not to let the other side write the bills, and why we need to write the bills so that we're protected. And if we don't, we're going to get stuff crammed down our throat that we're not going to like over time. You can win a battle, we won it in Congress, but you're not going to win it all the time. It passed by majority in the US Senate. It just didn't get